All right, class. Well, it's a new week in our class, April 11th through the 16th, communicating with technologies. So the focus this week is on communicating with technologies. You had a little bit of time or opportunity to explore some communication tools last week in your technology exploration experience on communicating and also on experimenting. This week you're not going to do that again. Instead, you're going to do some readings and then submit your amazing authentic learning project. Oh, and also watch a presentation. So you're going to read Chapter 5 on communicating with technologies, and then also watch this presentation on the concepts of communicating with technology. And then finally, you'll submit your amazing authentic learning project. And hopefully this hasn't snuck up on you too badly, but you knew about this coming. It is due by the end of the day on the 16th, on Saturday. So anyway, the amazing authentic learning project, let's talk about this just a little bit in preparation for your submitting it. Your assignment is to create a plan for a student/learner project that requires students or learners to design, experiment, or communicate with technology in an authentic learning experience. So you're going to have to go back to what you learned earlier in the semester about the authentic part of the meaningful learning framework and how it has context with it, and it's got some complexity, and you're trying to bring it into the school, the learning experience that your students or learners have. So this means that learners must be involved in activities similar to what professionals might do, and learners must see how what they learn is used outside of school. And again, it's a caution here is that authentic learning is usually more realistic for older students than for younger students. So sometimes if you have a younger student audience or learner audience, that might not be as realistic maybe as you would for an older or more experienced audience. But you have to incorporate technology, and you have to require students or learners to design, experiment, or communicate. They are the ones doing this. We're talking about student-centered learning now, and they're the ones who are going to design, experiment, or communicate. And then again, you can work with up to 2 other people in the class to complete this project, but you can also work individually, and most of you, I think, in this class have done your past assignments individually. And so you need to include these items that you probably already know and are familiar with. Describing your learners, a lesson title and summary. If you're a teacher, South Dakota content standards. So make sure you don't just list the number for the standard too. Go ahead and write out the standard in the assignment so that I don't have to go look it up. And then also the ISTE net standards. Again, don't just put the number for it. Put 1A and then write out what 1A is. Or 2C and write out what 2C is if that fits that standard. And those are just for if you are a teacher. Otherwise, they're not required. And then also write a special description of how the project is authentic. How is it complex? How is it contextual? Answer these questions, and then write a paragraph or 2 that describes how the project requires learners to either design, experiment, or communicate. So again, I don't just want to see that they can design and communicate in the lesson plan. I want you to actually tell me how they are designing, communicating, and experimenting, or experimenting in the lesson. And then a description. You need to have a good description of what learners will complete at the end of the lesson/project. So there should be something that they have to create, or there's some outcome that the learners have to create. And what is that? And give a good, clear explanation or description of that. Give a list of materials and technologies, intended learning outcomes, timeline of activities. Make sure you have a lot of detail on the timeline. What should exactly be happening during each part of this learning experience, and then an assessment plan intending how you would intend to measure learning. But remember also there's this extra layer onto these things. So you want to have these things, and I do suggest that you go ahead and write those out in maybe a Word document or something like this. But then you have to make the assignment into a different form. You have to put it into a different technology. So you might take it from your Word document and you might create a Padlet board or a Poplet or Easily or AudioBoo. You might do a podcast with it, or you might create a storybook or a concept map and so forth. So there's those levels of complexity that you have to have. So don't just hand me a paper. Make sure you hand into me whatever it is, a Prezi presentation or a bubble.us. But also remember that you can't use the same tool that you used it for a past project in this class. So for instance, if you already did a Prezi before, then you can't use Prezi again to present to me this assignment. Instead, you have to pick something else. So remember that, and that should help you get started with the assignment. There's a rubric here about how you'll be graded as well. And wish you luck this week as you carry on in your learning about communicating with technologies.